talk some Diablo.
Sure.
Um,
Um, I know, probably since we last talked about it, you guys haven't really touched it. I know Metal's gotten sucked into Zelda, trying his best to wrap that up.
I'm into
And
another
then,
game right now, so
yeah, you just fell off completely, which I'm a little disappointed with. You just moved right along.
I would have kept playing, but I was getting bored playing by myself, so I was just like, I'll play if you. That's why I kept throwing out if you guys were playing, I'd hop in. But
No, fair enough. I've been
I'm
playing mostly with my wife, because this is kind of like, this is her thing. Like, I've always enjoyed Diablo, but I've always kind of piggybacked off of her enthusiasm for the game.
so
Um,
real. Not to.
Has it changed since last time?
Oh, good. Yeah.
yes and no. So at its core, it's Diablo, and if you've ever enjoyed a Diablo game, you're gonna enjoy this. The gameplay is the same. I mean, there's small changes here and there, but the whole concept of running around smashing demons and raiding dungeons, it plays the same. A lot of the changes they've made, like you have the graphical changes, and then you've got like some of the overarching like world changes. I don't know if I prefer over three. I'm hesitant to say they're bad. I mean, there's enough people playing this game. Of course, it's not bad. There's plenty of people who are liking these changes, or maybe those who haven't been big on three hopping into it. I was talking to somebody who I came across a couple of weeks ago who had never played any of the old Diablos. This is the
Ooh,
first one, and
very
they
They
loved
love
it.
different.
it. Of
Hmm.
course.
Well, it's not very different because the core of the game is the same. I mean, really, I'm trying
It
to
is.
think of like any core fundamental gameplay differences
Well, in the
between any of
originals,
them.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe not different in terms of how the games operate, but I feel like there was a difficulty. Much like in the original games, if you got swarmed by more than like 4 or 5 enemies, you had better have been at a good level. Whereas in this
Yeah, but
game,
what I'm getting at is like context of like how the game plays,
yeah,
like the
I get
gameplay
what you're
style
saying.
and
Yeah,
whatnot.
let's see.
So the point being is people I talk to are loving this. And I think that's partially, I mean, not because it's not a good game on its own, but they don't have anything to compare it to. So if you look at this game at just face value, what it's offering you without any other comparison, you're getting a solid package, right? Everything about it is quality. The art style is nice. It looks good. It's not my favorite art style for Diablo, to be honest, but I'm probably the minority there.
Well, to be
And if you're
fair,
playing with people, huh?
no, I was gonna say to be fair, is there any Diablo-like game that is something that could rival it? I mean, I know there's what Baldur's Gate, there's is
Um,
Pillars of Eternity,
Pillars
Pillars
of
is
Eternity.
similar.
but Pillars
What do you
doesn't
say?
have the name
That's at
of.
Pillars and Baldur's Gate.
But those aren't like the name that Diablo. Like Diablo's like in terms of
Yeah, it's
just.
the more mainstream option.
Mhm.
But anyway, where I'm going with
Oh,
this
sorry,
is
bad. Yeah.
it's a good game. I don't think there's any issue or argument about that. I think you guys would probably agree with that from your little bit of playtime with it.
No, it's fun.
But I really enjoy three more. So there's a few things. For one, I like the art style of three better, and I know people are not going to agree with that because people were clamoring for it to go back to the darker Diablo 2 aesthetic,
That
which they
seems
very
to be
much
the
did.
total opposite sentiment from what I hear. A lot of people I hear prefer this versus.
And that's fair. I said this is pretty subjective. I think part of it for me is not that I don't like the new art style. It's a lot harder to read, like to see what's happening because everything's a lot more grays and browns, and it's muddier and more gothic and darker. I think it's harder to read the action in the same way. And maybe that's just the way I'm playing. I'm playing on console, so I'm further away from the TV, so maybe there's that. But I thought Diablo 3 read a lot easier. It was a lot brighter, a lot more colorful. I could kind of see like enemy telegraphs a little better because of the over elaborate like animations and things like that. So I think that's probably partially why I enjoyed 3. It also gave it a lot more. I'm hesitant to say character because you could also say that this darker aesthetic is a character to a certain extent, but I liked the kind of elaborate, over the top nature that the cartoony aesthetic gave to it to a certain extent. It also I liked the bit of dark humor that Diablo 3 had. This game is almost depressingly not funny. I mean, every once in a while it tries, and maybe that's not what they're trying to go for, but it's not that the Diablo 3 was, a laugh riot by any means, but you had some fun kind of comical moments. You had like Covetous Shin, who I thought was fun to chat with, and some of the other side characters you came across. This game's just very much a downer. I mean, if you're thinking about it from a story perspective, or even like talking with other side characters. Um, what else? What else?
You ran into Treasure Goblins yet and feel thankless about it?
Yeah,
And they're thankless and they're thankless dungeons.
yeah. I'll tell you, most of the loot, and I'm still. I don't
Hate
want
the
to say I'm
looting.
early game. I am like midway through Act 5, and I'm like
Mhm.
level 48. So I played a good amount. But yeah, the loot hasn't excited me yet. Even like the skills for my character, I'm playing. I know this is not the probably most exciting character, but I always do it. I'm playing a sorcerer, kind of the thunder element version. I don't know, it's fine. Maybe if I played a more interesting class like a necro or a druid, maybe I'd be feeling different. But I don't know. Nothing's feeling exciting about it. The loot game's not really jumping out at me just yet. It's fine. I'm chasing the next big number, but nothing about the abilities are really, setting anything off for me. The
Have you
open world, I'm not sure if I'm a huge
Really.
fan of yet. I don't know. How do you guys like the open world aspect of it? Did you prefer that over kind of the more straightforward linear structure, or?
Not really. I mean, it's okay. I mean, for what it is, it's fine.
It's
It's
not
just
right. They
I think
shifted
three
away
is better.
from the computer generated
So
levels, right?
dungeons, to my knowledge, are procedural. Like if you
Yeah.
go to like an
Mm,
instance dungeon or a cavern or something, but the world itself, everybody has the same world map.
Yeah.
So if you were hopping with
Uh-huh.
somebody else, you go to the same areas. Um, I think part of what I don't like about it, maybe it's because I play Diablo. I think more for like the story campaign and playing with friends, maybe the in-game stuff you'd feel differently about. But I liked how when you go through 3, the game progresses, and I feel like I'm going through like a series of environments, new kind of set pieces, and it's always kind of changing and pulling me to the next thing. I felt like I've been in the same area almost the entire game, and I've been all over the map at this point, but there's so
Fractured
much
Peak.
back. Huh?
You feel like you're in Fractured Peaks forever.
Yeah, I feel like you're in one area for way too long, but then like you come back to areas all the time because you're going back to try to clean up side quests, or you're trying to see or having to backtrack through an area to find a new path to, the next objective. And I feel like you're just in a lot of the same environments too much, too long. You get caught up in a lot of grindy stuff on the way, which slows you down. Like you'll do the same public event 1,000 times, which you could skip them, of course. I don't want nothing forcing you to do it, but I think a lot of us, at least me, is in that mindset. If I see an enemy, I'm going to go do it. Or if I see an event, I'm going to go knock it out. And I think you almost have to get in the mindset, almost like if you're playing Zelda, where there's a point where you see something off in the horizon. Sometimes it's not worth bothering with right now. You should just go on your way, focus on an objective to kind of
Especially if it's a
progress
guy
things.
holding a sign.
Exactly. So I think I've got a little fatigue in that way. And once again, part of it is the art style because it isn't an overly colorful, elaborate art style. So everything just kind of looks and feels the same to me. Other than that, though, I mean, the game's fun. The story's good. The cinematics are better. There's one thing that made me straight up mad though, and I don't know if you'd argue if this is an open world thing or gameplay decision. So for the first like maybe 20 hours I was playing, me and my wife were trying to do every side quest. We would just collect everything, knock it out of the side quest. We put off the story mission, and then finally we put it off so long we're like, okay, we just want to buckle down and try to knock out a lot of the story. So we started going through. We got through like a full act, and we'd pick up extra side quests along the way, but we leave them. You get to a point where your side quest log gets full, and it won't let you accept any other side quests until you go back and do other
I
ones.
never got to that point. I
That's
didn't play long
stupid. Are you
enough, so
serious?
It infuriated me because I couldn't even then like keep track of a side quest as I come across it and be like, well, I'll come back to it later. Now, unless I want to stop and like grind on side quests for an hour, I just have to remember, oh, there's this guy with a blue exclamation mark over his head in this town. Whenever I get a free side quest slot, I come back and pick it up and then do it. And some of these side quests are so tedious. Like, I don't know how many you guys did. There are a few gems, but a lot of them is just go to XYZ, kill so many monsters, come back and get a checkbox that you completed a mission. Nothing overly exciting. You don't get loot rewards or not usually nothing overly interesting from it, some gold, some experience. So after a while, I think you realize some of the side quests are just it's a
Yeah.
grind. So I don't know. I thought that was honestly kind of infuriating. I don't really understand the rationale for why they would limit you on side quests, at least just adding it to your log. Like, I'm thinking of like, Skyrim, where I could collect every side quest under the sun. It would just sit in my log of 80 things to do. And then one day when I felt like it, I could come back and say, okay, now I feel like being a mage, and I go do that side quest. I didn't have to remember that there's some guy sitting over in a town I have to go talk to first. Like, I don't know. Very jarring decision to me. And that's the first time I think I straight up kind of was upset by the game. But I mean, I guess that's a minor gripe. Game's fun. I do plan on finishing it. Me and my wife are still playing through it. I think we're almost at the end. I think there's 6 acts, and one of the acts is kind of short. So, yeah.
I am hearing another you guys, one of my other favorite YouTubers, I like the Act Man. He literally just yesterday dropped a whole like 40-minute video of him kind of ragging on the game. But I'm hearing a big problem with a lot of people is apparently the end game. A lot of people are saying that there's really not much to do, or I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
assuming you
but
haven't finished the main stuff.
yeah, I mean, that's not a new issue with games like this. Like Diablo 3 didn't have much of an end game. I mean, it wasn't for years, and they finally added like the bounties and all those other things you could go do, the warden stuff. So I mean, it's a game that will grow. And to be fair, like even though there may not be a substantial end game, which I'm not at right now, if you did want to do just all the content in the main game, that's a lot of freaking content. Like I am not at level 50 yet, haven't finished the story. Man, we must have spent 30, 40 hours on it already, just kind of putzing through it. Maybe not quite 40 hours. We spent a lot of time. So there's plenty of content to serve you well right now. I know the first season is dropping like next week or something like that, or really soon. So more content's about to come. So, I think that's fair within, a month or so of release that they have, more in-game content that's dropping. So
I don't know if we've had that type of conversation before, or just kind of talked about how like the length of a game, how much does it attribute to how much a game's worth, or how much you enjoy it. Where it's like, you know, a game like we were before we hopped on live, a game like Zelda, where it's like, you know, just because I spent $70 or whatever for the game, and it goes for 35 hours, like
longer than that.
Nope.
yeah. But if it had gone for 20, would it have been any less of a game if it was 10, 15 hours shorter? I don't know. So it's always an interesting dialogue.
Yeah, I'm not one who's typically in the camp of value equals quantity, if that makes sense. Like, it's nice to know that you're getting something to do for your game, but if that something to do is busy work, that I don't think gets overly exciting. Some people like that. They like the grind, just where they can just casually sit back, knock out a few shrines in Zelda, knock out a few dungeons in Diablo, and that's all they want to do, even if it's the same cookie cutter content. Maybe it's because I don't game quite as often as I used to. I mean, I still game a fair amount, but I'm a lot more selective with the games I choose and when I'm going to play them and how many I play. That when a game, I don't want to say waste my time, but like a game like Zelda, that traditionally is 20 to 30 hour game if you go back to some of the classic versions. And now I'm playing 100 hours, and really, I don't feel like getting a much more, what's a good way to say this? Um, Overly expanded experience, if that makes sense, right? Like, I still think if they could have stripped down Zelda by like 50%, the core of the game could have been just as good and probably more fun, probably more meaningful. It probably would have felt like some of the content was a little more unique. Game probably still would have been 50, 60 hours at a bare minimum. So I do feel like a lot of games are getting bloated, possibly for the sake of just being bloated, so people spend more time engaging with it. And I'm less of a fan of that right now. Like I'm feeling that right now with Zelda. Well, not Zelda. I'm sorry, Diablo. And I think there are certain games I want that for, like Destiny. When we used to be big on that, I was all about the grind. Like more content, even if it's repetitive content, I'm all for because that's what you want. If it was Final Fantasy like 14 or something, where you're doing like daily grind kind of stuff, sure, you want that kind of repetitive stuff so you can keep on playing forever and ever. I don't really want that from these games unless they were offering me some really unique concepts, which Zelda didn't at a certain point, and Diablo doesn't offer anything new even beyond like Diablo 3. It is the same game, different facelift, a few new gameplay elements, but it's Diablo through and through. So you have to be, understanding of that and expect that going into it.
Hmm. Fair enough. So you good? Was there anything else you want? I mean,
I'm good.
you want
I
to?
just realized I ranted for like way too long on
I was
just
just gonna
Diablo
say.
4.
I mean, if you want, we can always come back whenever you finish the game, and you can let us know.
Maybe if I feel like there's any big revelations to it. I honestly don't think my mind's going to change much at this point. Like, I'm going to finish the story. I'll fight some more
You'll
bosses.
kill
We'll see what the
Lilith.
end game's like. Huh?
Kill Lilith. I'm
Yeah,
sure, or
I
something.
think it's a very kind of expected roadmap for the rest of the game. I think
Mhm.
I'll enjoy it just fine. I'm not trying to come across super negative about this game. It's a fun experience, especially if you have friends. So if you got people you can play with, go for it. You're gonna have a good time. But
What are
if you
those?
have played Diablo in the past and you're expecting something new, you're not getting it.